I would like to resume this council meeting. Our first item on the agenda this evening is the recognition of two special salmon arm athletes who took part in the 2019 National Winter Team Games. National means that they were participating against athletes from all over Canada. And what I'm going to ask is that council come forward with me, and we'll ask them to come up, and we would like to present them with certificates of recognition and also shake their hand and congratulate them. So council, if you would come forward with me, that would be great.
I'll be right there.
So, yes, this is Courtney Bacon. Courtney participated in the 2019 Canadian Winter Games as a ringette player. Congratulations, Courtney. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience there?
It's pretty good, pretty intimidating at first, but it was so cool just getting to play all the different provinces and like seeing how everybody's like different. I don't know, it's a good experience.
And were players on the BC team, were they from all over the province?
Yeah, so there's people from Okanagan, Vancouver, and Prince George.
And how did your team do?
Good, we came 4th overall.
Congratulations. And where were they held?
In Red Deer, Alberta.
Red Deer. Former Bastion student as well.
Yeah.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
And this is Laura Hall, and Laura took part in the Canadian Winter Games as a speed skater. Congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Are you comfortable telling us a little bit about the event and how it went for you?
It went good.
How do you make a BC Winter Games team as a speed skater?
The BC Winter Games?
Yeah, like how do you make the BC team? What do you have to do?
You just have to qualify it. There's a competition, and you just have to get like the top 4. Just
You're very modest. And so what events did you go in?
all of them. So the 500, 1,000, 1,500, 3,000, mass start, and team pursuit.
Wow. Well, congratulations to you. There, so we'll just get a little bit closer and then we'll take a photo.
I was curious what position.
I played forward.
Heidi, did you get a photo that you needed?
Thank you.
Okay, congratulations, girls. Thank you for coming. Congratulations.
Well done.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you.
Okay, now we'll carry on with our business. So we have 4 statutory public hearings this evening. And to start with, I'll just read a statement, our opening statement. So at this public hearing, anyone who believes their interest in property is affected by these matters will be given a reasonable opportunity to be heard or to present written submissions to council. If you wish to speak concerning the proposed bylaws, please approach council and begin by clearly stating your name and residential address. The function of council this evening is to receive the views of the public and ask questions regarding submissions. Council will not debate the merits of the proposal with individuals. The background documents related to the bylaws and written submissions that have been received by the city are available for inspection by the public and are located in the binders on the table by the entry doors. All written submissions will be retained by the corporate officer for review by council and by members of the public. To make sure that everyone has a reasonable opportunity to be heard, the following rules of procedure have been established. 1. Please direct all submissions to the chair. I'll then redirect questions to the correct staff person. 2. Following introduction of the bylaws by city staff, the floor will be open for presentations, starting with the applicant and followed by other interested parties in the order in which the chair recognizes them. Presentations will not be limited unless the submission is not relevant to the proposed bylaw. There will be 3 calls for submissions prior to the closing of this public hearing. I ask that everyone respect the views of others and try to keep your presentations as concise as possible. Legislation does not permit council to hear or receive submissions from the public after this hearing is closed. I would ask the Director of Development Services to now explain the first proposal, which is Official Community Plan Amendment Application OCP 4000-38 Cutting Edge Holdings.
Thank you, Worship. So bylaw number 4324 proposes to redesignate Lot 1, Plan 17069 from Highway Service / Tourist Commercial to High Density Residential. And the property is located at 1231 30th Street Northeast. The applicant is Cutting Edge Holdings Limited. The owner is a numbered company. And there's also an associated zoning amendment bylaw with this that will be discussed after this bylaw.
Great, and thank you for pointing that out. So if the applicant is present, I would ask that they please come forward. Welcome to council.
Thank you.
If you can just start by giving us your name and residential address, that would be great.
Brian Durston, 2790 25th Street Northeast.
Terrific. Would you like to speak to us about your proposal?
Well, we plan on rezoning to build 3 duplexes on the property that's existing there now.
Okay. Councillors, do you have any questions for the applicant at this time? Okay, thank you very much. You can have a seat, and if we have a question, we will bring you back. Is there other people who would like to present on this bylaw? Please come forward.
Good evening, honorable councillors, mayor, and staff. My name is Sid Barasoff, and I reside at Broadview Place North, unit number 18, just the lane over from the subject property. I come to present an objection from my wife and I to this development, and with that I bring 16 other signed documents of objection from fellow residents in that development. I don't speak on their behalf. Some of them are here and some are not able to attend. Our concern is that the traffic situation in that immediate area is very bad. I think one has to almost live there to walk that on a daily basis to get an appreciation and realization how treacherous it really is there. And it would be a shame to have a serious injury or a fatality before something is done about it. And the second point, and not to limit ourselves to this, as others may wish to speak as well, is that we're less than pleased with the development as it is being presented. I think it violates our privacy and our peace and enjoyment of our properties. The 3 stories, 4-story type of building is going to look directly right into our tables, basically. And based on those issues, we object to this. We would urge council to either keep the zoning as it is or adhere to the official community plan.
Thank you, Mr. Barasoff. I'll just see if councillors have a question, and you can leave your letters with the Chief Administrative Officer.
Thank you.
Council, do you have questions for Mr. Barasoff? I'm just wondering if is it possible just to put the map up, a larger piece of the map, because I just want to identify exactly where Mr. Barasoff lives. Okay, so Mr. Barasoff, which unit is yours?
Well, I'm number 18, and if you're looking directly at that map, I would say I am exactly at the top left-hand corner of the red mark, and there's a lane there, right just about where the dot was.
Okay, so that's your house. It has the
Well,
magnifying glass on it.
You don't see the development's out of date there. Okay, if you move that cursor straight up, bring it to the right, bring it to that corner, to the left-hand corner, top left-hand corner, right to the corner. And I'm about 30 feet on the other side of that corner.
Okay, let's make this a little smaller.
And many of the people that are represented in the objection are between that and 30th along that lane.
Okay, so Mr. Barasoff, just so I understand, so you are on the other side of the lane from that red?
Yes.
Yes, and so, okay, I understand. Councillors, do you have any other questions? Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Calling again for a first time. Is there other people who would like to come and present to us? Please come forward. Yes, ma'am? Please come up to the mic.
I can't make it down the back.
Okay, can you yell from there?
Yeah, I'll do my best.
Okay,
You're referring to it as a lane between the two properties? That is not a lane. That is my private driveway.
great.
And I don't want anybody on it, because when these people had their homes built,
Ma'am, make sure you speak to me, okay?
when these people had their land or homes built on this land that I'm representing there, I would come home from a doctor's office and have a cement truck parked in my driveway, and when I'd ask them to move, they'd just look at me.
Got you. What's your address there?
I got the panhandle there, it's 1251 30th.
Gotcha. Okay, I understand. So I was mistaken. That is not a lane. That is your driveway.
That's a private driveway, and I've got 3 signs on it now, and I still have trucks coming down, I got people coming down to look at that new building that's off of 10th.
I understand. Okay, thank you for clarifying that for us. Is there other people who would like to present? Please feel welcome to come forward. I'll ask for a second time. Asking for a third time. Before I ask for a final time, I'll just see if council has any questions for staff or for any presenter. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question to staff regarding procedure and what we are dealing with. As I understand it with this very colorful map that I have up, but if we could go back to the first issue that we're dealing with is the designation of the property in the OCP, am I correct?
That's correct.
And then the second issue would be the zoning to correspond to the designation?
That's correct. It's tourist commercial presently.
Yeah. And then, so the presenter, Mr. Barasoff, spoke to 3 to 4 floors, and the developer spoke to 3 duplexes. If the OCP designation gets approved, redesignation, and if the rezoning gets approved, does council have any role in development permit guidelines which speaks to 3 or 4 stories and form and character? Or is that up to staff once all is said and done?
Director of Development Services.
Your Worship, in the application report, on your agenda, there's two concepts shown on page 281. And these are just concept drawings. They're not development permit drawings, and they're not in front of you for approval or not. So to answer your question about approving a development, if the rezoning and official community plan bylaws are adopted, then the applicants would have to apply to you for a development permit on what the buildings look like. I should mention that with the current official community plan designation, which is commercial, that designation supports commercial zoning, which actually allows for a higher building than what is permitted in what's being proposed with R5 zoning.
Kevin's must think alike, because that was going to be my next question. So thank you for pre-answering my question with regards to what is already designated in the OCP is highway commercial. Thank you. That's all I have for questions for now.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Cannon.
So my question is a little kind of ahead of the game, but where would that property be accessed in the development?
The only access possible is from 30th Street.
So from 30th.
And I think Councillor Cannon the laneway would be parallel to the woman's driveway that was shown earlier, if we showed a bigger picture of that.
Your worship, with this concept here, you're correct. The internal access route in a strata development such as this would be next to the panhandle access of the property to the north.
Right.
But this isn't set in stone.
Can you just run the cursor along where the woman's driveway is? Not this driveway, the neighbor's driveway.
Mrs. Sutherland's driveway.
Got it.
That's the neighbor's driveway.
Okay. Councillor Cannon, do you have more questions?
So if it ran parallel to that, would it just be the neighbor's driveway and then that? Like, what would separate them, I guess, would be my question.
Well, there would likely be a fence needed along here.
Okay.
And I can't tell you what is there right now. I can't remember, to be honest with you. At the development permit stage, we would look to see what is there, if anything. And if there isn't any type of barrier there, we would suggest a fence.
Any other questions, Councillor Cannon?
So if we suggested a fence, a detail like that, we would look at development permit.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Lindgren, thank you.
Thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, right now it's highway commercial. Can you just give us some examples of things that would be allowed there under highway commercial?
So it would have to be, just to clarify through your worship, it would have to be rezoned to a commercial zone. But the OCP supports commercial zoning, right? So if it was rezoned to C6, which is tourist commercial, or C3, service commercial, you could have retail, you could have upper floor dwelling units, you could have office space, you could have indoor recreation. There's a lot of uses listed in those zones.
So is it currently R1?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Lindgren. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. I did come up with a question for the applicants. Staff put up 2 possible designs.
Applicants, would you come forward to the mic?
And clearly they're just possible designs, and down the road, if this gets approved, there'd be a development permit. But I'm guessing based on your early comments that you're leaning more towards the bottom one in that's looks like 3 duplexes to me as opposed to 2.5 duplexes. 5 buildings.
Correct.
Okay, so you're leaning towards a development similar, and again, this isn't form and character, I just wanted to get an understanding. And 2 levels?
Well, garage plus 2, so 3.
Okay, thank you.
Can I just speak to the design a little bit?
Certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've fashioned these after some that we've been in West Kelowna. And the rooftop deck is that, it's not like a patio where you're looking out the patio. It's more a whole rooftop deck. So these people aren't looking over the railing into other people's yards. You're more above everything. And that's the beauty of it, is that they're completely private up there. So you wouldn't have that looking into other people's homes type of thing as you would on a patio looking straight out from it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Flynn, any other questions?
Not at this point.
Councillor Wallace Richmond.
I also had a question for the applicants.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, my mistake. Thanks for being here. We hadn't had a chance to see you yet, so I just wondered if you'd had the chance to speak to your neighbors.
We hadn't because of a email glitch. We only found out last week Friday.
I see.
Because it was going to our junk mail. For some reason, every email we get from the city now goes to junk mail. So we completely missed it, and then we were away, so we didn't have time to do that.
I have spoken with one gentleman that lives in the area, but
Right.
that's all.
Okay. And just if we could just quickly go back to the concept. So would where the garage be, or where the parking is, would that be considered the back of the house or the front of the house?
We're not entirely sure yet.
Okay, all right.
Design-wise.
Okay.
Probably the garage would be facing their homes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the front would be facing the
Other
home to the
direction.
south. I see. Okay. Thank you.
And we would do a fence or a tree line between the lanes.
Okay.
For
All right.
privacy.
Great.
Probably tall growing trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace Richmond. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thanks, Mayor Harrison. And a question to staff, actually. The property in question is surrounded by R4 designations, including some from the petitioners here. What is we have the proposed R5, and I don't have the page in front of me here, but as a hypothetical, if that was R4, similar to most of the surrounding properties, what would be how many units would be on that piece of property, or could be on that, without density bonusing?
Director of Development Services.
It would be 16 units per acre.
And how big is that space?
Or it'd be 40 units per hectare. So if anyone has a calculator, it's 40 times 0.13.
Okay.
I don't have a calculator,
Okay.
sorry.
I think Councillor Lavery's question is, on that particular lot, how many units would fit if it was R4?
5.
5.
Okay.
Thank you very
Great,
much.
thank you. Councillor Lavery, any other questions? Okay. Councillors, do you have any other questions at this time? Okay, I'll ask for a final time if there's anyone from the gallery who would like to speak about the OCP bylaw. Please come forward.
The question I would
Your
like...
name and residential address, just for...
sorry. Jan Seawright, and my address is number 17. Where he was 19, I'm 17.
Okay, thank you.
And what I'm asking is, how many people, like individual people, will be living there? Do you answer that question?
We can take the question and we'll see if we can get the answer for you.
And not only that, how broad is this piece of law that they want to work on? How do they get out? And we're right next door, and you're saying that they will not look into our yards. I would like to ask one of you to come up and see that piece of land. And there is no way that they are not going to be looking into our property. No way. So it's really bad. In fact, if I had property in Salmon, I would be worried if this goes through. So I'm not asking the right questions, but I just wish that you could come up and see what they're building on.
I understand.
Unbelievable. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other people that would like to make presentation? This is your opportunity. Okay, hearing none, I'll declare this OCP public hearing closed, and we'll introduce the public hearing for bylaw number 4325, which is a zoning application associated with this, and I'd ask the Director of Development Services, please, to explain the proposal.
Bylaw number 4325 proposes to rezone Lot 1, Plan 17069, from R1 Single Family Residential to R5 High Density Residential.
Thank you, and that's a lot we just talked about. Would the applicant like to come and speak to this? I know you have. Is there anything you would like to add? And this is a zoning piece.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if there's anything more to add.
Fair enough. I would ask for a first time if there's members of the audience who would like to come and speak to this zoning bylaw piece. Please come forward.
My name's Sid Barasoff, hasn't changed.
Thank you.
I would just like to reiterate that I really feel that this is an appropriate use of this property that is proposed. That property has got severe limitations because looking at it on a picture on the wall and going there and seeing it in reality, it's a long, narrow strip. Even for commercial use, it's probably got very limited functionality because of its access of getting in and out. And to have this, again, a personal take, presumably these are going to be rental units, single family. Inevitably, there's a motorcycle, there's bicycles, there's two people working in the household, and there's two cars. Those cars are either going to be double, triple parked in there, or parked on highway or on 30th. I just think this is an ill-conceived thought. I'm sorry.
Thank you. No, appreciate your input. Is there any questions for Mr. Barasoff? Okay, none at this time. I'd ask for a second time if there's people who would like to come and present. Please come forward.
I'm Paul Figgis. I'm in that same, number 14, just a bit around the corner.
Thank you.
And is there a way of reducing the height or compromising and not having it 3 or 4 stories high? Or do you have to go with 4 stories?
Okay, thank you for the question. I would ask the Director of Development Services, is there a height difference between R5 and R4?
Yes, the maximum height in R5, what's being proposed is 12 meters, and in R4 it's 10 meters without a height bonus.
Okay. Thank you. So the zoning that's being asked is R5, 12 meters. R4, which is where you are, is allowed 10 meters.
Okay. So is there a way of making some proposal to make it?
Well, it's information for us to know, and thank you for asking the question.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I'd ask again for a third time, is there other people who would like to come forward and speak to this proposal?
Excuse me, my name is Bill D'Souza. I reside at Unit 20, same unit as my neighbors here.
Okay.
And my concerns, I'm just going to reiterate, my concerns are more to do with the traffic as well, in that I already think there's an issue with traffic at that corner or that area, and I just don't see having another entrance there being a good thing, especially with the high school not far by. If anybody knows of that area, you get kids coming to McDonald's, and it's just not safe. And I think that that's something else that should be thought about in the future, is a light at that corner. I'm not sure of the number of the street, but where Sutter's Pub is and where the McDonald's is, I think there should be a traffic light.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your input. Is there other speakers who wish to come forward? Council, do you have questions for either staff or for any of the presenters? Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. A question for the presenters. Would it be rental?
The developers.
Sorry,
would you come forward to the microphone?
Through you, Your Worship.
That's okay. We'll just have them come forward to the microphone, then the people can hear them as well.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be rentals. It would be like duplexes that we sell.
Okay.
For families. And just to clarify, it's not going to be 4 stories. It's going to be 3 stories. So roughly 10 meters. So I'm not too sure. I couldn't find the measurements on it, but it's around the 10 meter height.
So by going to R4, R5 rather than R4, you get like a more dense development, 6 instead of 5. Is that
right? I think it's 5.2 is what we're with our.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay. Exactly. Okay, I like to ask if you consider rental because I ask everyone about that because I actually would like us.
Rental's not in the equation for us at all.
But if I could finish, I ask every applicant, will there be rentals? Because the community needs rentals. So I'm just making that clear. That's why I asked. Right. It wasn't I want it to be clear, it wasn't renters. It was a please, we need rentals.
There's a shortage of rental properties in Salmon Arm, but these won't be rental properties.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask while you're at the microphone?
Yes.
Would you be accepting of a covenant that limited the height to 10 meters?
I would have to look at the drawings to see. I know it's close to 10 meters, so that's something we would have to consider. But I know we don't. It would be a garage, main floor, and second floor with a flat rooftop. So if we can keep it in the 10 meters, that'd be great. But I'd have to look at our drawings to see if it is 10 meters or a bit higher.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Just a question to staff. I'm good on the height and stuff. The OCP designation is highway commercial, and somebody asked what could go there. Could a 4-story hotel like is being built down by McGuire Lake be built there?
Director of Development Services?
Under highway commercial, if it was rezoned to highway commercial.
No, because of parking.
Okay, so that would be a parking issue. Okay, thank you for that answer.
Councillor Lindgren.
Thanks. I wanted to ask the developer or the owner one more question. Just that.
Come forward.
Sorry, it's like church. Get up, sit down. I just wanted to know, so the lots are fairly tight and I'm just assuming there will be no green space around them sort of thing. So the rooftop patio is your outdoor space, correct? Yeah, okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks for a second opportunity. I wanted, through you to staff, because it's close to the Trans-Canada, is there not some sort of Ministry of Highways approval for something this close to the Trans-Canada?
Director of Development Services.
Yes, that's correct, Your Worship. The Ministry of Transportation would have to approve this bylaw before council could grant final approval.
And through you, Your Worship, they do often ask us about traffic studies, do they not?
In this case, they did not ask for a traffic study.
Okay, thank you.
Other developments around there, they have asked for traffic studies.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Could I ask staff to go back to the pretty colored map? It's my favorite. No, that's not as pretty. The other one. There. That's the one I like the best. Just so I'm clear, if we allow this, if we allow R4, you could build 5.2 units, it sounds like, without kind of really squishing in. R5, you can do more than 6, but 6 would be allowed. The piece below that's designated R5, how many units went in there?
Your Worship, I don't know the exact count of units, but the history of this property, it has gone through some zoning changes.
Mm-hmm.
And at one time, it was zoned R5, and there was a development permit approved for 3-story townhouses, similar to what is being shown on the concept for this one. But the owner and developer at the time could not find a market for those units. And so the market that he was trying to capture was the single-story small homes.
Right.
And so he rezoned from high density to medium density, even though the OCP supports high density R5 zoning there.
So we downzoned that one, and then the other big piece that's being built on now, to the left, yeah, that has 3-level homes on it, bordering 15th, correct? And that's going to have probably 30 or 40 units in it?
That's right. So what is proposed on this lot is a combination of townhouses that you can see being built right now off of 15th. And the townhouse development will continue up to approximately this point here. And then there's 2 4-story condominiums proposed here.
Okay, so the densities and land use in that area in the last 3 years have changed drastically to much higher densities than what was there previously.
Much higher in this case, and then much lower in this case.
Than was designated, but it used to be R1 as well.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you.
Flynn. Do council have any other questions? I'm going to ask the final time if there's anyone in the audience who would like to come forward and speak to this bylaw. Okay, council, any questions before I close the hearing? Okay, I'll close the hearing now for 4325. Just so the gallery knows, we will be dealing with those motions. A little bit later, we have 2 more hearings to do first. So I'd ask the Director of Development Services to introduce bylaw 4331.
Your Worship, bylaw number 4331 proposes to rezone Lot A, Plan 27050, accept Plan 36325 and EPP 89786 from R1 Single Family Residential to R8 Residential Suite Zone. The property is located at 960 12th Street Southeast at the corner of Auto Road and 12th Street. Present use on the property is a single family dwelling. There is a 3-lot subdivision application related to this. And the owner is 1129288 BC Limited, represented by Blake Lawson.
Great, thank you very much. And is Mr. Lawson here this evening? Hello, Mr. Lawson. Would you like to come forward and talk to us about your development?
Thanks, Your Worship. Blake Lawson from Lawson Engineering and Development for the developer and owner here. I'm just going to keep it brief, but we are just proposing to subdivide this into a 3-lot subdivision. Proposal will include some significant renovations to the house, and then 2 additional lots that we originally planned to put houses on each one of the lots with rental suites on each. We're still planning to do 1, and we may or may not do the second ourselves, or we may end up selling off the lot. But in either case, we'd like to rezone to R8 to allow for some more rental suites in Salmon Arm.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Lawson at this time? Okay, seems like no questions presently. I'll ask if there's anyone in the gallery who would like to come forward to speak to bylaw 4331. Asking for a first time. Asking for a second time. for a third time? Council, do you have any questions of staff? Seeing none, I'll ask for a fourth and final time. Seeing no one coming forward, I will close the hearing for 4331. And I'll ask that the Director of Development Services introduce bylaw 4332.
Bylaw 4332 proposes to rezone Lot 9, Plan EPP 55453 from R7, large lot residential zone, to R8 residential suite zone. The property is located at 3200 20th Street Northeast in the Woodland Heights subdivision. The owner and applicant is Mr. Wong, and the lot is presently vacant at the moment.
Great, thank you very much. Is the owner, would the owner like to come forward? Hi, Will, thank you for coming and seeing us this evening. Would you like to speak to your proposal?
My proposal is to build a house on the lower part of the property, and in the future build a shop with a suite above.
Okay. Would that go above the house or below it?
It'll be above to the east of the property.
Got it. Okay. Councillors, do you have any questions for Mr. Wong? Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Will it be a rental suite?
Yes.
Excellent.
Thank
you. Thank you, Mr. Wong. We'll have you have a seat and we'll...
And the renter will be my fiance's grandmother. She's, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll ask for a first time if there's people in the audience who would like to come forward and speak to this proposal. This is your opportunity. Yes, please come forward. Hello, welcome.
It's first time here, so I don't know the formalities.
It's okay, just give us your name and your address.
Okay, it's Lynn Bissonette. I bought the lot beside it, and we've going to start building. The one, yeah, going south, down, that way. And I didn't see what they had planned, and our bedrooms are going to be bordering their lot, and I just didn't know what it was that they were planning, because I didn't see any pictures of where they're doing it. But I just don't want, we're just nervous about having rental property right where our bedrooms are. We don't know. Yeah,
understand.
We wanted a nice, we bought the property for the big backyard. We're building slightly forward so we have it, and so we can view the beautiful farm field in the back. And that's what our concern is what's going to be there, noise and blockage of our view. But I mean, I don't want to cause problems either. It's just, this is an expensive build for us, and it's we just want whatever's going to go through. We like to know, I know there's height restrictions on the lot that goes with it, so they'd have to build within it. So it's just, I'd like to see what they plan on a piece of paper, the development.
Fair enough. I'll just ask the Director of Development Services. Of course, the house would have a R1 restriction in height, same as yours, but the second dwelling unit, what is the height restriction on the second dwelling unit?
7.5 meters, whereas a house can be up to 10 meters in height.
10 meters?
So
I thought we had 30 feet. I could have
same
built
thing.
a taller house.
Okay, so that does help you a little bit, because I think Mr. Wong said his house was going to be near the front of his property and the dwelling unit near the back. Dwelling units can be 7 meters.
7 meters.
Yeah.
7.5.
7.5, sorry, thanks for correcting me.
Oh, that's very, very tall. Right?
7.5 meters is about 22 feet. The house can be 30 feet.
Oh, I see. Okay, that's not as bad as I thought then. Okay, I'm old school foot.
Hey, thank you.
That's good, thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to come forward? Yes, please.
Name is Tim Mosier. I'm at 3240 20th Street Northeast. That's the lot on the north side. So I don't have any strong objections. I have some concerns. Fact that I'm new to Salmon Arm. As of a couple years ago, I moved into this area from an acreage. I was attracted by the R7 single-family dwelling on a large lot, which would give me lots of privacy and sort of rural in the city. I know you're interested in high density to help with the rental situation, but when you attract someone to town with an R7, I would think that that would stand for something and it wouldn't just be easily flipped over into something else. I've talked to Will about his plans. The plans that he's verbally communicated to me sound reasonable, that he's going to be, I'm at the back of the lot, he's planning to be lower down. How do I get some assurances that, because the rental suite may come at a later date, that it is actually going to be as described? So is there some sort of covenant that where I can lock him into the description that he's given me?
I understand.
So that I don't have a rental suite 6 feet off of my back deck. Not that it could be a bad thing, but it might be.
Sure. So I'll just ask the Director of Development Services, and he can talk to you or talk to us about side yard setbacks and rear yard setbacks.
So, Your Worship, this photo was taken in 2016. It's a lot different here now. The setback along this property line for a house is 1.8 meters in the zone. For a detached suite, it's 2 meters. So slightly larger. So it is possible that a detached suite could be built 2 meters from this property line with the present zone. A lot of the backyard of these properties cannot be built upon because the Agricultural Land Commission required a covenant that extends 20 meters deep on each lot, and you cannot build anything residential within there. So the lot is constrained somewhat, even though they are large.
We're currently 20 meters from exactly what the covenant says. So I guess what I'm saying is Will said that he's going to be lower down.
His house?
Yeah, no, the suite will be lower down.
Okay, I understood that the suite would be in the east section.
But it'll still be lower than our property.
I understand.
Our structure.
Right.
So is there some way that we can assure that that's the case, or?
Yeah, the
like he could sell the property and then someone else could
certainly
pop something up high.
So I'll just ask Director of Development Services, if Mr. Wong wanted to build a shop, how tall could he build a shop?
A shop that is not a suite, it has a maximum height of 6 meters.
Okay, and that could be built with the same setback, right?
Actually, it can be closer. So a shop can actually be 1 meter off of the neighboring property line.
Okay, all right. So those are basically the rules. The way it works is the setback determines where a person can build.
So I guess I'd like you to take your zoning a little more seriously when you set it out in the first place. We spent a lot of money. It's a big investment for a particular environment that we were looking for, and just potentially going away. I think the slopes work in our favor, but if that was a flat lot, anything could happen. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it's a good thing for the city to be doing something like that to attract people for a particular reason or a particular environment, and then it's just willy-nilly removed.
I understand.
So,
Okay, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Mosher? I do. Councillor Flynn? Yes, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Tim, and I just want to make sure you're clear, because your questions were about this, the shop and a potential suite above the shop. But if this stayed as R7, you can't control where they put their house, and they could actually build their house closer to your house than they can a shop. Are you aware of that, based on the questions that were asked? So
yeah, like I said, I am not opposed to what Will's planning to do, but he could do something else down the road. Like, it's not guaranteed that it could be built with a shop and suite further back in line with our property, which if it was R7, that wouldn't be the case. The suite would be contained in the house.
Well, no, if it's R8, the suite doesn't have to be in the house. It could be detached.
No, it's currently R7.
R7,
If it's switched to R8, then the suite can now be detached.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure,
That's my
we
point.
can't control where somebody places a home, I guess is what I was getting at. And it could be closer to your home than the potential shop. I just make sure I'm understanding that too.
Yeah, my point is more that you designate an area, you track somebody to a property with an R7 designation, and then 2 years later you flip it. Doesn't seem honorable.
I think Councillor Walsh-Richmond has a question, I believe.
Thanks, Your Worship. Through you to Mr. Mosher. I live in Canoe, so I don't have the problem of a big lot. I just want to understand, most homes in that neighborhood have a shop, is that right? You wouldn't object to your neighbor building a shop or a garage, would you? On an R7?
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
So it's the R8 piece,
that's right.
the fact that someone might live in that garage.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Mosher? Thanks, Tim.
Okay, thank you.
I would ask for a third time if there's anyone who would like to come forward and speak to this bylaw. Yes, please come forward.
My name's Anne Benham. I live at 319 120th Street, which is actually opposite that development on the other side of the road.
Understand.
Again, my concern is the same as the last person that spoke. You know, with the rezoning to an R8. You know, we came because the lots were sort of larger in the area. We were drawn to that, and obviously we know there's going to be building opposite us. But obviously we weren't aware when we bought that was going to be the case of a detached suite. It's the rezoning, I think, that I'm from R7 to R8.
Okay, and your house is where the magnifying glass is that right?
Yes, I think some of the glasses on, yes. That's
okay.
It. Yes.
Councillor Kennedy, do you have a question?
Well, I guess just a question. Like, looking at this map, are you aware that there's 4 lots there that are already zoned R8?
I didn't know they were ready.
In that development, there's one.
Okay.
Well, from our map, if it's not
okay,
current.
that's what that is it? Okay.
Yeah, 4 R8 on there right now.
Okay. No, I don't think I was aware of that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Anyone else wishing to come forward to speak to 4332? Councillor Lindgren.
Thanks. I just wondered, through you, Your Worship, if you could just clarify how big these lots really are. Are they measured in acres?
Director of Development Services.
Each lot is approximately 1/3 of an acre.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Council, any other questions before I close the hearing? Any other speakers? Okay, seeing none, I will close this hearing for item 4332. We'll now move to section 22, reconsideration. Section 23, sorry. Okay, and your information, Councillor, is under tab 25. So, We have a proposed motion on the floor for item 25.1, bylaw entitled Fish Community Plan Amendment, bylaw number 4324, be read a third time. Can I have a mover and a seconder to get it on the table, please? Councillor Lindgren, Councillor Wallace-Richmond. Thank you. Council, I'll open up to your comments or any questions you might have. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Again, I'd like to go to the colorful map, Appendix 3, the OCP designations, if I could, to start my comments. Okay, so I just want to make sure we talk about the OCP designations, and the OCP, the official community plan, is the time that the community, consultants, staff, council, citizens get to provide input into what the future zoning of our community would look like. And it's a fairly extensive process. They say you should do it every 5 to 7 years. The reality is more like 8 to 12 for most communities, and review OCPs. So the purple, where this red square is in this piece of property, is designated highway commercial. I'm not a big fan of down zoning, and highway commercial, in my opinion, would be the ideal use of this piece of property. The reality is, though, the provincial government built a residence on the corner of the highway commercial, and therefore we would have a single family property that I believe is a group home or something like that right beside highway commercial. In my opinion, putting a higher density residential like all the orange makes sense. It's interesting that a lot of you that are speaking against this, and I understand change is difficult, we heard the same arguments when we rezoned and redesignated. That property didn't have to be redesignated, but we downzoned your property from an optimal use, which would have been higher density. So when we look at the optimal use of land on behalf of the community, your property was supposed to be higher density. Even with the downzoning, people came and talked about traffic and parking and all of those things. We hear that with every change. Traffic, parking, those issues. We hear about viewscapes and people looking in. Having been here 13 years, we hear that all the time. The fact is, change is not easy for any of us to deal with, and but to me, this change makes sense. We could keep it or rezone it highway commercial, but as I've said, unless the other piece was the same thing, I think it makes more sense to have it be the orange, which is higher density. It's interesting, I just recently came back from a trip to the island, visited some friends in Nanaimo, visited some friends in Campbell River, and my comment when I got back is we don't have very many duplexes in Salmon Arm. They've been turned down in the past, I'm not sure why, but in both Campbell River and in Nanaimo, new subdivisions, there's a significant portion of them that are duplexes. I think the solution being proposed here, and we do have a chance to deal with the development permit, is a good use of the land. It is supported in a sense by the OCP, but what could be there could be even higher and create more traffic issues. And I did want to say that I believe that the traffic concerns and the person who spoke to the light, that could change in the near future with potentially a traffic circle at that difficult corner. I believe that that's in the long-term plans, Director of Engineering and Public Works, am I correct? Okay, so we understand there's traffic issues. My suggestion is that these 6 new, if that's what it is, properties, homes, get put there. If that's 12 more cars, the traffic issues are there already from the increased densities that have already occurred, and we're aware of them. We're putting money in a budget to make some changes to that corner. So bottom line, I'm getting to it in a roundabout way. I support the OCP change because, in my opinion, it makes sense. It's a good spot to increase densities. It's walking distance to all our amenities. And so I will vote in favor of the OCP designation change.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Lavery.
Thank you, Mayor Harrison. A couple of general comments first and then some specifics. I can speak, I think, for everybody at this table. We actually do go out and look at these properties. So we walk them, we look at them. We read the hundreds of pages we have, we review them a number of times, and we physically go there as well. So just as a reassurance from that. And the second point, just general point, Your Worship, is, and this is not a lecture in any way, because I didn't do it either. Whenever we have bought property, I've never thought, or ever did, go and say, what does the OCP call for? And what's the surrounding zoning? I've never done it. I sure as heck do it now after sitting in this position. And let everybody I know make sure you do it. And again, I don't want to get too anecdotal, Your Worship, but 2 or 3 years ago, a retired couple moved to town, bought a little R1 zone property. Right next to it was a big vacant lot, high density. And that was part of, I'm not blaming them for it, but there is responsibility here, and our responsibility is to the overall development within Salmon Arm. And I want to be really straightforward here. The previous council, this council, in essence, is looking for increasing density in all areas of the city. I agree with a number of points that Councillor Harrison made. I do believe that Councillor Harrison, Councillor Flynn, excuse me, I know I've called the mayor the wrong name, and now my brother-in-arm, Councillor Flynn. I get that there's a height difference potentially between R5 and R4, but this is a to go to R5 is a downzoning from densification of a piece of property here, and I support that going to R5. And again, Councillor Flynn has a favorite map, but if we could go to the next page, page 279, and if we could slide up to that piece. And again, I think this is information that we face all the time, that we look at all the time, that R4, R5, proposed to the south, R5, and I was watching the reaction of the audience when saying in the gallery here, and then there's an R5 proposed. I think some of you may know that, some of you might not, but this area is being densified, and it's a process that I support. I will support the application in front of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I too will vote to support the change in the OCP. I feel that the property to the south, having been built out by BC Housing, kind of cast the die. And as much as you're here to say, please don't support this, had that property not been redeveloped, it may have well been a fast food chain, a Starbucks, that sort of thing, in which case traffic would probably be the least of your concerns. So the good news is it is staying residential. The bad news is it's not the kind of residential you wanted, but we all have to take our, we don't always get what we want. Apparently the Rolling Stones were right. So I will vote to support it and the accompanying R5.
Councillor Lindgren.
Thank you. I also support this change, and I know from experience that changing the neighborhood is, it's a bit scary. I live downtown, and right next door to me is an 8-unit apartment building, and right behind it is another 8-unit apartment building, and just down the street from that on the other side of me is I think there's 12 units in the apartment building, and that last one went in multiple years after I bought my house, and there were people on my street that were worried about that it was going to change the neighborhood, they were going to have their privacy, and it's true that some of the units on the back side of that do look over some of the houses on my side of the street, and it hasn't changed anything for any of us. The buildings are beautiful to look at, the people are respectful, and they're all rentals, actually. I support that we're densifying the city. I think that we need to build more homes like this closer together, because that increases the tax base, which means that we have more money for infrastructure, which is what we're looking for. We need to be able to afford roads. We need to be able to afford to keep up our sewers. And if we just continue to build out and out and out, that becomes completely unmanageable. So I support this as well.
Thank you, Councillor Lindgren. Any other speakers before I call a question? Okay, this is on the OCP amendment. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll go to the zoning piece of this proposals. This is zoning 1141, zoning associated with the OCP change we just made. I'll open it up to councillors. Would anyone like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, I will start. Could we just see the official community plan map? Great, thank you. And a number of people have spoken to the official community plan map. The key property Councillor Flynn talked about was really the one that was south of this property, which is purple in this picture, but in fact is residential. And the province is able to usurp our bylaws, and so could you just give, yeah, there we go. So that became residential, because certainly I think my preference would have been to have that whole square commercial, because it's a perfect commercial spot. As Councillor Wallace-Richmond had said, if that became commercial, it could well be more imposing on your neighborhood than the proposed residential one. If we can go to the zoning map. Great, thank you. So looking at the zoning map now, there's a number of R5 properties, well, they're zoned R5, and then others that are suggested. The positive, I would say, is that the woman's driveway and the proposed laneway that would access this lot are going to be between your properties and the buildings. And in fact, the parking, there'll be a setback from that laneway, which is going to push it back a little bit farther to the north than would have been the case if the lane was on the other side. I would say for those folks here that live in the development, if you just put the hand up where those people live, there. Mr. Look at my note here. Mr. Barasoff. Thank you, Mr. Barasoff, for coming forward. First of all, I think of those affected in this development, Mr. Barasoff is certainly the most because he's the closest. People who live within your development, I've been in there many times, and it's a beautiful development. I don't think there's going to be any effect on where you live. People who are bordering that, there's going to be some effect. And so I don't think we should make this decision without saying there's going to be some effect. There's going to be some effect, though, no matter what goes there. And so in some ways, having it residential and not commercial will minimize that effect. The traffic argument is not a good one, because all of you people live right there and you all drive out of there. And so it's pretty hard to say, you 6 people that are wanting to build here are going to have cars and going to cause a traffic problem, because we all contribute to the traffic problem. I do where I live, you do where you live. And so if we made decisions on just vehicles, no one would live around those areas at all. And of course we have to, because that's where the infrastructure is. So traffic is a challenge with every development that we do. And we are looking, as Councillor Flynn said, at 11th and 30th. And especially during school times, it's difficult. I was at Bastion School for 7 years. I know the intersection inside out. And I understand it's challenging there. So that's a given. I don't think these 6 units are going to make the difference as far as traffic goes. So I'm going to support the proposed zoning that's been requested, knowing there will be some impact on some people who are close on the border there, but knowing that no matter what went there, there would be some impact. So I will support it. Councillors, any comments before I call a question? I think most of you made your comments in the OCP. Okay, all those in favor?
Your worship, we need a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Is there a mover? Councillor Flynn, Councillor Cannon, thank you for correcting. I will now call the question. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Move to the third one. City of Salmon Arm Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4331, Lawson, 12th Street Southeast, R1 to R8. Could I have a mover for that motion? Thank you, Councillor Wallace-Richmond. Councillor Lavery. I'll have the administrator read the motion.
Moved by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, seconded by Councillor Lavery, that the bylaw entitled Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4331 be read a third and final time.
Thank you. Councillors, any councillors wish to make a comment or question? Councillor Flynn?
Well, we talked previously about densification, and this is a perfect infill for our community. Buying a lot that has the capability to be turned into 3 lots, and I have absolutely no problem approving legal suites potential in all 3 of those lots, because we would much rather have legal suites than illegal suites. So I will support the rezoning and the infill densification, which is perfect match with our OCP and our DCC guidelines.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Our final item, 25-4, City of Salmon Arm Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4332, Wong. We have a motion proposed. Is there a mover to that motion? Councillor Wallace-Richmond, Councillor Lavery second. Have the administrator read the motion, please.
Moved by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, seconded by Councillor Lavery, that the bylaw entitled Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 4332 be read a third and final time.
Thank you. Any councillor wishing to speak to this bylaw? Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Could we see the OCP for that neighborhood, please?
Sorry, not now. The hearing's closed. Go ahead, Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
I was wondering if I could see the OCP, the pretty map. Okay. So in the OCP, it's designated low density residential. So I hope that brings some reassurance to neighbors who might be concerned about the intentions of their new neighbors and their property. And while I understand that a person's home is their castle, believe me, I get that. We don't really get to control what happens on our neighbor's property as long as it fits within the rules. So we all play by the same rules. And if Mr. Wong could build a shed closer to the property line, or build a house, or rather a shed with a suite on top that might accommodate an aging parent or a college student or what have you. I mean, somewhere in the middle has to be some compromise and some understanding that just because we bought our 7 doesn't mean we get everything we want. So just as in the last case, it is designated low density residential. There will be no R4s or R5s in that property, at least in this iteration of the OCP. So it's not a total disappointment, and I hope Mr. Wong has a great build and a long, friendly future in that neighborhood. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace-Richmond. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Harrison. And it's an interesting contrast between the last Mr. Lawson's property and this one, and in reference to Tim and the comments that he made. As a matter of practice in the last 2 or 3 years, we have actually been block zoning R8 precisely because those people coming in are aware of it. And the concerns expressed have been heard a number of years ago. This original R7, it was at least 4 or 5 years ago, I think, that was zoned that way. So we are dealing with some artifacts here as well. And I would, and again, not to be controversial, but I'd at least point out people have a right to do with their properties what they want, and that wouldn't preclude, for instance, Mr. Mosier, you building something further on the front of your property that your neighbors might not want either. The R8 designation, and if we could turn again to, my favorite map is page 307, and it's the zoning, and it's the R8 there. Those R8s have been added on fairly continuously, at least in the last 4 years that I've been here. They were all R7 in the beginning, but certainly any, again, I go back to, and it's not a blame, but purchasing, looking at what the potential for those properties are. I do support this rezoning. And again, I think for a lot of the reasons that have been illustrated here, is densification, it is smart growth, it is intensifying the use, it is legal suites, and it increases capacity. How lucky for your grandmother to have this opportunity, and how lucky for you as well. But if that's also a rental, that's fair game under the zoning as well, and I will support this. Thank you.
Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to refer to this same map, but it's unfortunate that it doesn't go up further, because I do believe we recently approved a full subdivision of R8 just down the road on that piece of property, or a piece of property there. And that was how many R8 lots?
Potentially 12.
Okay, so I guess it's important to note, and I appreciate your input, Mr. Mosher, but it's important to note that any R1 lot in this community can be rezoned to R8. And R7 is really a single family lot on a bigger lot. That's all it really was. And it was designed, I believe R7 was designed in the day when there wasn't sewer to there, correct? Yeah, because up in Hillcrest, the R7s were designed because they were large lot with septic services, no sewer. So any R1 in the community can be zoned R8. I've been here 13 years and I can't recall voting against an R8 for all the reasons that have been mentioned, densification, legal suites, all of those things. But I think it's important. Councillor Lavery hit the nail on the head. It's unfortunate that people don't understand how the OCP works. And any property can be rezoned from R1 to R8. And personally, I will vote in support of this zoning, recognizing that 5 or 6 of them have already occurred and there's a whole subdivision down the road of potential R8. So I will vote in favor because I think it's a good spot for an R8 with a detached suite.
Councillor Cannon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I too think this is a good spot for R8, and as we look at this map, Appendix 4, all the R8s that we have approved, and I was on council previous, and I can't ever remember rejecting an R8 rezoning. So I think that this will be a good development, and to be able to have an area for a family member to stay or available for rental is what we want to see in our community.
Thank you, Councillor Cannon. Councillor Lindgren.
Thank you. So I don't have too much to add. I mean, the council has done a good job of reiterating why we vote in favor of these things. I would add the one piece, though, that I have a rental suite in my own home. I share my home with a renter downstairs and have for the last 25 years. And I don't think that my neighbors would know that I have a renter there 99% of the time. I know it seems like people have a misconception maybe of that renters are noisy or obstruct somehow your enjoyment of your own property, or they cause traffic problems. But in actual fact, that's not the case. And having one extra car at my house and one extra person coming and going is no different when this house was originally housing a family of 6 or 8 people. So, you know, currently, even with my suite, there's only 4 people on the property. So I support this.
Thank you, Councillor Lindgren. Could I just ask to have the zoning bylaw one more, or the zoning map one more time? Sorry. Thank you. Great, thank you very much. First of all, I appreciate Tim coming forward, and I guess my regret on this property is that the owner of the lots didn't have all of them R8 right off the bat, because then it would allow future purchasers to come and say, oh, okay, I know they're R8, I know that there's a possibility that that's going to happen on these properties. So that piece is unfortunate, but that piece is past now. With the other R8 zonings here, each one, we have had people come and speak to us and say, we don't want those beside us, or we don't want those across the road from us, or we don't want them up the road from us. In each case, when the R8s actually have been built out, the problem that individuals thought would happen actually didn't happen. In fact, you can't even tell, I would say in every case, that there is a detached suite there, because it looks like a garage or a shop. And so, hearing Mr. Wong's plan, and I hear Mr. Mosher's, outside concern that what happens if he sells it and someone changes the plan, I get that part. But hearing the plan, I think that it will fit in and not be a negative to the neighbor. And of course the benefit is a relative, or as in Mr. Wong's case, or a student will have a place to live in Salmon Arm in a suite. So I too will support it, understanding the concerns that have been stated here. Any other comments? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Passed unanimously. We will move to our last item, which is a question and answer period. Does anyone in the audience have a question that they would like to ask us? If they do, please come forward. Hanka, come forward and ask us a question.
This is my first time and kind of educational.
Council, Hanka, it's nice to see you.
I'm all goodwill with Will and the suite and everything. It's just I've never understood the R7, R8 zoning, and I definitely don't understand why this meeting was even called, why we were given the notice, because it seems like R8 is a good thing and everybody gets approved. So I don't understand why we are even here. And so it means if we want to build a suite and do R8, then it's all good because everybody else does it, right?
Hanka, I think you understand, and you're supplying Councillor Flynn with, he's been saying this for some time, that we should just have staff handle it. So we may get to that point. Many communities do not have rezonings for secondary suites.
Okay.
So appreciate your comment. Thank you, and great to see you.
Send an email, Hanka.
Any other questions from the gallery? Tim, you can ask a question, but it can't be related to this rezoning, because...
No,
okay.
My whole reason for being here was really to understand how you guys
Sure,
work.
absolutely.
Because I'm okay with what Will's doing. Why do you have R7? Why does it exist?
Okay, that's a really good question. I'll try to answer that. I believe the R7 lots, and most of them were in the Raven area. And the reason they were there is because they were developed before there was sewer available in that area. So the lots had to be large enough to have a septic field. Same with some areas in Hillcrest. So now that sewer is available, it makes it provides those lots the opportunity to have more than one dwelling unit on them. We have quite a few subdivisions in Hillcrest area that are exactly like that, where they divide the lot in half because it was R7, and now they don't need the septic.
So in future, when you have sewer access, you're gonna not have R7s, you're gonna call them R8s?
I would say there won't be R7
You
is
avoid that whole, the issue.
it's a dinosaur going out, yep.
Okay. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we have a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Lavery, that the regular council meeting of April 23rd, 2019 be adjourned.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Quickly.
Yeah, that's right.